Welcome back to the Car Compulsion YouTube channel. Interesting one today and another comparison video, but a comparison video with a bit of a twist. Today I'm going to be taking out a Civic FK8 Type R. Now this car has a bit of a special place in my heart. I've owned two of these cars and they are absolutely brilliant. There is no other way to describe them. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I think they're so great today. And you may be sort of screaming behind your screens there, if it was so great, then why did you get rid of it? Why have you still not got them? And it was just a circumstantial thing, a situational thing at the time that made me move on to something a little bit different. But I did have them for the longest out of any of the cars that I've had. And I can tell you now that they are a phenomenal driver's car. And I'm going to be taking one out today and telling you what I like about it and why I think it's so good. I appreciate this is a Marmite car and we're going to address that too. And then I'm going to throw in a few comparisons at the end and talk about how it compares to the M2 Competition, because it is a worthy competitor in certain areas. So sitting in the Type R, let's address the elephant in the room, or the big wing shape elephant in the room. Let's be honest, it is a Marmite car. You either love or you hate this car, and monumentally it gets a lot more hate than it does love. And I think it's unjustified. I love the way the car looks, and I always did. It's very functional. All of the aero, all of the vents, everything serves a purpose. It's not just been stuck on from Halfords, which I know is the common misconception. It all serves a purpose and makes the car drive as brilliantly as it should. Now it's important to mention before we go out, this car isn't completely stock. This car actually has a Mishimoto intake on it. It has a HKS Legomax catback exhaust, and it also has 25mm lowering springs by Airbag and 25mm spacers. So it isn't completely stock. It's just kind of OEM plus, but it will give it a little bit of a different feel, and I think it's important that I mention that before we take it out for a drive. Kind of feels like home for me sitting in this thing. It is a really nice place to be. This feels like a race car the minute you get in it. There was a lot of press about this car. You know, when the car was released, it hit the Nuremberg ring in a world-breaking time for a front-wheel drive car. And that was one of the appeals to me when I bought my first one. When you get into the car, you immediately feel like it's an experience. The Civic Type R does offer an experience. It just wants to be driven. This car is immaculate in everything it does in regards to the way it controls the body, the way it handles. This car has an intake, a Mishimoto intake. I'm not sure if you'll hear it. Probably heard that there. Really adds good character to the car, actually. Something that I never had done in my FK8 when I had it. Really does add a lovely sound. Variant of the FK8 was very quiet. Like most modern cars today that have been slapped about with EU regulations, it didn't always have the best sound, and that was one of the main critiques out in the sort of wider market. This has got the HKS Legomax catback on it, and it really does add a much nicer burble. Been driving the car now for a matter of, I don't know, 5 minutes, and it's gets more attention than any other car that I've had. Yes, that's partly looked, down to the looks and the outside of the car, and the, the way that it commands road presence, but it really does attract attention. I've already had a thumbs up from someone, and we've only been driving 5 or 10 minutes. For a car that you can pick up for around 30 grand, less used, the car comes very well equipped. It's got some really nice features on it. It comes with a wireless charging pad. It comes with a variety of driving aids and controls that can be used if needed. I particularly like the blind spot warnings in the wind mirrors, and something that I actually do miss in the M2 Competition. The FK8 Type R comes with a set of 3 different driving modes. You've got a comfort mode, which is really livable. It really irons out the bumps in the road. Very smooth, and it's really easy to live with on a daily basis. You then have the standard sport mode, which adds a little bit of throttle response and stiffens the car up. And then we have R plus mode, which really puts it into like a track beast, really sets down in the springs, becomes very planted. The ride is a lot firmer. It isn't something you would want to drive in R mode on a daily basis, and it adds another level to the throttle response. But when you're throwing it around the back roads, R plus mode is where it's at. driven one of these now for around 8 or 9 months, and I forgot what a glorious event the gear shift is. The short throws, the way it locks into gear, it's just an absolute thing of beauty. It really is one of the best manual gearboxes that I've ever driven out of the 13 cars that I've owned. One of the beautiful things that Honda engineers did with this car is they engineered it to be driven fast and hard on a racetrack, but they've also made it immensely livable. I don't think there's a car out there that loves a twisty road as much as this one. I'm currently on a stretch of 60 in the back roads, and the car is just lapping up these corners like it was born to do it. I can't explain to you how well that front diff takes the car around these corners for a front wheel drive car. It's absolutely sublime. It gives you the feeling when you hit a corner in your stomach that it's pulling you in, that it knows exactly where it's going to take you. The diff is intuitive, and you really feel secure. You feel absolutely confident that you're not going to have any problem taking this car around a corner at speed. Brilliant. This car is one of the cars that made me love driving. It's one of the cars that made me get into cars and have a love of cars, because of the way that it made me feel when I drove it, because of the attention that I received, and just generally because of the way the car handled. It made me feel like a race car driver, and I think that's how we all want to feel from time to time. I've just dropped the car back into comfort mode, joined a piece of the A12, and I'm literally just cruising along, and it's so livable. I can't explain to you. I mentioned it earlier. It really is a lovely car to drive. It's got enough power that you feel comfortable and confident in it, but it's really, really smooth. It's very supportive. The seats are manual. There isn't a lumbar support option. They aren't electric, and there's not even an ability or an option to spec that, but they are really, really good. I've done several long drives when I owned my FK8, and I never had an issue, despite the severity and the way the bucket seats look. They are like sitting in an armchair at home. It's not to say that this beautiful car isn't without its flaws. It has flaws like most cars do. The interior build quality, you know, it isn't 100%. It certainly doesn't compare to that of the BMW M2 Competition. But I would say that it's very, very good. You know, it's solidly put together, and Honda obviously have a great reputation for making cars, you know, that are really, really well put together and have a minimal amount of technical faults. As mentioned at the start of the video, this car does have 25mm drop springs, and it does have spacers on it, and I can't say that it's a noticeable difference from that of the actual, you know, unmodified car. It does probably adds a little bit more poise and a little bit more refinement. I've really enjoyed the 20 or 30 minutes that I've been out in this car, and it almost scratches the itch for me again to want to go out and buy another one, because it really is an experience. And you know, maybe I wouldn't, and maybe I wouldn't consider, maybe there'll be another variant of it in the future, but honestly, it's a brilliant car. So there we have it, a quick blast, a quick drive, and a fun drive. I'm going to jump back into the M2 Cop and give a very quick overview of how I think the cars are different, because this is a worthy competitor in certain areas. It's not as quick, the engine not as punchy, but there are things about this car that you should love, and the things about the car that I love. So let's get into my car and talk about it in a little bit more detail. Jumping back into the M2 Competition after a really fun, spirited drive in the Civic Type R FK8. I'm going to just take this for a drive now, basically on, you know, very, very minimal drive, just to talk a little bit about the differences between the cars. There's a lot of differences, and there's some things that are better and worse. I'd like to talk a little bit about them, just to give you a bit of an overview for anyone out there that might be considering either the FK8 or the M2 Competition. If we're comparing these cars like for like, there's a significant power difference, big torque difference, and the M2 Competition is much faster in a straight line. Now that's out the way, let's talk about the things that the FK8 does well compared to the M2 Comp. Where the shining light of the FK8 really stands out for me is, again, like we had with the Porsche the other day, is its drivability, its handling, and the way that the car sort of rolls around the body, and the way that it delivers performance that a front wheel drive car just shouldn't be able to do. The Honda comes with a lot of technical equipment. It comes with a lot of standard stuff that you would ultimately spec on an M2 Competition, but the build quality in the M2 Comp is far superior to that of the Honda. Although it's well made, the materials in the cabin are just not quite as nice. The seats in the M2 Competition are very, very nice. They're comfortable, the leather's good, you know, they have all the bells and whistles. Mine come with memory, they're electric. But maybe unpopular opinion, I think that the seats, or the bucket seats in the FK8 Type R, are actually more comfortable. They're very supportive, but they also, they just feel like they've got immense amounts of support around underneath the bum and around the back area, and they also keep your legs pinched a little bit more, but not in an uncomfortable way. So I'd have to give that to the FK8. On day-to-day fun factor, probably the M2 Comp for me. The rear wheel, you know, everything we've discussed in previous videos, you know, typical M car fun. The FK8 is still a fun car, and it's almost like a race car for the road. If I was taking both cars out on a track day, I think I would have equal amounts of fun in both. More fun from a sliding out the back and, you know, being a bit more boisterous with the M2 Competition. But if I was really pushing on for lap times and precision driving, the FK8 would be better. The M2 Comp is more powerful, the M2 Comp has a better engine, the M2 Comp is faster, the M2 Comp is exceptionally fun. So there we go, guys, another video down, another drive down. I really enjoyed making this video. It's not really, you know, it's a bit of a, you know, a loose comparison video because the cars are not direct competitors, but it's still a brilliant car, and I really enjoyed driving it. I wanted to drive it for a video because I actually love being in the FK8, and I wanted to just see how it felt compared to the M2 Comp. And the reason I'm making these YouTube videos is because I love making them, and I like driving different cars and seeing the differences between them. I'm not making this, you know, channel to become a multi-millionaire, as much as that would be great. I'm just sharing views and opinions, and I know the comment section might fire up with what everybody thinks is an abomination of a car in the FK8, but let's keep it respectful. It is a great car to drive. I hope you enjoyed the video. More comparisons coming soon.